All that cash has helped produce a campaign that by one estimate means a 7-to-1 ratio of negative ads to positive. Is all that negativity having an effect? Will we see a return to civility in politics anytime soon? Here to discuss the issues are Thomas Volge, a University of Arizona political science professor and former mayor of Tucson, and Carolyn Lukensmeyer, executive director of the National Center for Civil Discourse at the U of A. Thanks for being with me.
Thank you.
Delighted to be here.
Dr. Lukensmeyer, if blame is the right word, is all of this cash to blame for the tone we're seeing in the campaign?
Well, I don't think there's any question, but the influx of money as a result of Citizens United has given both campaigns and all these super PACs the dollars necessary to buy many more television ads than we've ever seen before. And they are, in fact, more negative and more disinformation than has been typically true.
And your reference to Citizens United was the U.S. Supreme Court decision a couple of years back that allows corporations and unions to contribute to political campaigns.
Absolutely.
Dr. Volge, your thoughts on that? Are we seeing more negativity because there's more money available?
I think we're seeing more negativity because there is more money available, and you can target more with those commercials, and you can do a lot more things with those commercials that has turned negative. But it's not just the money. It's armies of consultants who tell you when to do negative commercials and when not to. It's both campaigns who have taken on negativity in a very dramatic way. It's feasible, it's possible, even with large sums of money, to be able to try to stop this. But at some point, when the cycle starts, it's very, very difficult for any of the sides to stop. And it builds a momentum of its own that becomes really vicious and really ugly.
Now, you've been in politics a long time, Dr. Volge, and around politics. Ever seen it this bad?
It's never been this bad. 4 years ago, it had never been that bad. And I think if this trend continues, we're going to be sitting here 4 years from now saying, it's never been this bad. It has been getting really bad for quite some time now. And the issues about civic discourse and about positive approaches to politics is a lot of what citizens want to talk about, but can't because this overwhelming amount of negativity is getting in the way.
I'd like to return to what the future will look like in 2 or 4 years and what could be done about that. But first, Dr. Lukensmeyer, let me ask you, are voters getting turned off by this? Do we see any evidence of voter fatigue as a result?
There's no question about it. Weber Shandrick, who has been tracking issues of civility, both in governing and in campaign cycles, say that now we're up to literally 83% of Americans actually believe that the kind of incivility that we're seeing is part of why Congress cannot solve the major issues facing the country. So citizens actually see a relationship between the money and incivility in campaigning and our inability to deal with immigration, to deal with climate change, to deal with the fiscal cliff. So unfortunately, what history shows is the more disgusted that citizens get with our politics, the more likely they are to disengage because they don't see positive ways to change it. They don't see how to impact a television station to stop the ads. So unfortunately, I think it is having a very negative impact on the voting population. And we'll probably see a lower voter turnout this year.
And Dr. Volge, your thoughts?
Well, you know, historically, negative campaigning was done to reduce voter turnout. And that would help one side or the other. There is something bizarre going on, though, this year, because there has been an enormous amount of negativity. And it doesn't look like voter turnout is going to go down very substantially. So there's something very strange this time around where people are absolutely and totally disgusted with all this negativity, but they're not reacting the same way to it they used to before. If this was the olden days, which means 10 years ago in politics, I would have predicted that the turnout would be about 10% lower than it was 4 years ago, just because of the negativity dimension. It looks like it's going to be pretty much the same, maybe 2-3% lower. It does not look like the same reaction to negativity that we've had in previous campaigns.
So, Dr. Lukensmeyer, are we becoming inured to this?
You know, I was recently in Ohio, And Ohio is one of the states that literally tens of millions of dollars have been pushed into that state, not just at the presidential campaign, but the Senate campaign and several congressional districts. And I thought the most creative response I heard from a citizen was, I'm going to early vote, and I'm going to turn off all my devices. And he actually went on to say, given the way we are technologically intertwined now, there ought to be some way, once my household has voted, that the television and the internet knows that, and I don't see any more ads. I thought that was a pretty creative idea.
Maybe we could do that with the mailbox, too, because there's a lot of direct mail going on in that regard.
True.
Dr. Volge, what do you expect the impact of all this will be for governance once the election is over?
Well, I think there are two kinds of impacts. One that was just suggested earlier, which is that once you call people who you have to work with scum and slime and liars and cheats, it's really difficult to sit down with them across the table and formulate good public policy. You tend to divide a lot more, you tend to be much more hostile, and we're likely to see that hostility growing. But there's another effect, and it's the effect that we don't really talk about. And that's that a lot of good quality politicians, people in office, walk away from this process saying, I've had enough. I don't want to be any part of this. And what gets left are either newbies, people who do not understand what they're about to walk into, or some of the not so good people who stay in politics who say, I can do this under any circumstances. And you see a lot of retirements, a lot of people walking away, a lot of people saying, I've had enough. I do not want to subject myself or my family or to my friends to this kind of public ridicule for nothing, because some of it is, or a lot of it is just simply made up. And that's a huge loss in our political system.
Less than a minute remaining, Dr. Lukensmeyer, civil discourse. How do we bring that about?
Well, one of the things that I think is good news is that some of the very excellent members of Congress that you were just speaking about actually want to do something about this. So the Institute is leading an effort to create a working group for a working Congress. And many members of the House who really respected Gabby Gifford's bipartisanship work, and many efforts in the Senate who want to deal with the filibuster, are really doing work right now, even before the election, to position themselves to see if we can't do something about the incivility in Congress.
Carolyn Lukensmeyer, Executive Director of the National Center for Civil Discourse. Thomas Volge, Professor of Political Science here at the University of Arizona. Thanks for speaking with me today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.